Hey everybody, welcome back to another Ninja One MSP live chat. I'm one of your hosts, Jonathan Crow, Director of Content Community. I've got with me, as always, my co-host, Tom Watson, our Channel Chief Advisor. Tom, happy December.
Great to be here.
Yeah, and then we also have our special guest for this session, Chris Dix. He is founder and CTO of ChatStyle, a really cool company that is providing some solutions that are directly applicable to what we're talking about today, right? Chatbots, automation. Chris, thanks so much for taking time to be here.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
And thanks everybody in the chat who's already diving in. Matt Fox bringing the snacks as always. Familiar faces are great to see. Tim from Bristol, Tri-Cities represent. I'm from Johnson City, Tennessee originally, although I'm up here in Maine for some reason. I'm freezing up here now. And yeah, really great to have everybody here. This is one that we've been wanting to do for a long time. We've been wanting to talk about chatbots, automation in a more broad way too. It's been a topic that as geeks we've been really drawn to, and we've been seeing some people really kind of go down this path in a really cool way. And we've seen lots of resistance and some interesting questions and examples of people doing things in maybe not so great ways too, especially recently. There's not to name any names, but recently there's quite a bit of a dust up about, okay, automation is great, but where's the line where you're being helpful for people and you're meeting them where they're at, and crossing that line and maybe being deceitful or letting them feel duped. They're interacting with someone who is maybe not who they think. So a timely topic, a super interesting one, and one that's got real implications for everybody here on the call, right? And so our focus, as always, is to provide you with a great access to a guest who's going to you're able to ask questions to, and who's able to give you some information. And we also want to make sure that we tie everything back into, this isn't just cool and interesting. What's the practical angle here? And so, Tom, I know right off the top, you wanted to talk a little bit about how this is an area that you've been looking at, chatbots specifically, and automation more in general. And it's something you talk with MSPs about all the time.
Yeah, my take on this is, it's been a few years since I had an MSP, but the number of automation options out there, the tools you can use, is really interesting to me, because I look at it as, if there's a way to automate some process in your MSP, you need to try it out. You need to give it a chance, because it probably is the difference of you being able to scale really effectively and not being able to, and also not being dependent on as many administrative staff and other things that kind of tie up the business, have a lot of expense. So I just encourage anyone as an MSP out there to kind of look at this and think about what could do for your business, what automation does, and give it a chance if you can.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'll just jump in and say that, we're going to go over the kind of structure for this conversation. I'll pull up the doc a little bit here. But basically, this is a chance to talk all about, okay, what is possible? Because I know from my perspective as a marketing guy, when I hear chatbot, I have a very specific image in my head. It's when you go to someone's website and you see it right there, and I'm able to engage one way, to ask questions, all that sort of thing. But obviously, there's more things that are happening from there. And so Chris is going to walk us through some examples of how MSPs are using it on their websites, but also in some different ways. And of course, some of the challenges and opportunities that come from that. So don't wait. If you have questions, feel free to jump in the chat. One thing I'd love to hear from people who are here, this isn't just the opportunity, I always say this, for you guys to hear from us. We want to hear from you too, and you guys can hear from each other. Who out there is actively using chatbots, maybe either on your website or involved with your own support processes? I would love to hear from you. If you've got experience to share with the rest of the crew, that would be great. So don't be shy, jump in the chat and let us know. But Chris, before we go too much further, why don't we give a little bit of background on yourself?
Sure. Well, I have a software development background. So when I say, excuse me, that I'm CTO, I'm also lead developer. I've built a lot of the product from the ground up. And so I've been doing software development for a pretty long time, and especially for MSPs and with MSPs, working with them. I've never been an MSP myself, but some of my best friends are. So they have some of the same problems that other businesses do. They want to make themselves available to their customers and give them the best kind of support they can, increase sales. And one of the ways they're looking at doing that is messaging, chat. So and that can take a lot of forms, but in the end, it's all about giving people as many ways to communicate with you as they can. So yeah, but I'm coming at this from a software development background. I'm a former Microsoft MVP. Been doing my own consulting for the past 20 years. So.
Nice. And yeah, I mean, we're excited to have you here because you're going to be going into showing some examples. You, Tom, and I were talking leading up to the chat, and we asked you, what are the pushbacks you get? What are the objections to? Do we really need another way for customers to contact us? And then, of course, if you do go down that path, where information is going and all that stuff. And you had some good responses for that. And also, more than that, I think there's an element here of people know that these opportunities are out there in a kind of a vague way, but when it comes to specifics, like having you here to be able to share some specific examples, I think is going to be really helpful. Because I mean, we see here in the chat, David, call it, you're not using a chatbot right now, this kind of automation. A lot of people aren't, and I think some of that may come down to people don't really see like the exact use cases for how to do it. That might be something that's helpful. Just to provide some context that's kind of helpful for this discussion, I feel like before we dive into the specific examples, I'm curious, are you guys on the online here in the chat, are you experiencing any differences in terms of your customers' expectations? And of course, like everything could be tied up in like the whole pandemic and switch that way. But I'm just curious if you're seeing more pressure to be reacting more quickly, to be reacting or to be engaging with them in different forums and channels. I mean, Chris has brought up that with everyone using Teams now, or a lot of folks anyway, that's become a whole other avenue where people kind of want to are kind of approaching their IT providers and wanting to engage there. So yeah, interested in hearing if people are having those shifts in expectations. I pulled some stats because this is what I do. I go down rabbit holes and stuff. This is from HubSpot, and it's a little bit dated, a couple of years ago, but I think the point holds true, right? Everyone's impatient. Like this is a trend that has just been going on for a while, and it's just becoming increasingly the case. No one wants to wait around for anything, and I think that that's not just a consumer thing where all of us here, when we're engaging with our own personal buying and everything. It's definitely gone into B2B too. So you see here some stats from HubSpot where they're saying patience basically wears out at 10 minutes. 82% of consumers rate an immediate response, which they say is 10 minutes or under, as important or very important when it comes to sales and marketing. And then that goes up to 90% when you're talking about support. So yeah, we've got this whole attitude now of like we've all walk around with supercomputers in our pockets. We're all used to instant gratification. We want things, we want it now. We don't care how, we want it now. Also, going back to the sales and marketing side of the house, very curious to hear. I've had some conversations with MSPs about using chatbots in more of like a lead gen capacity, and we'll get into more of that in the second half of the call here. But just wanted to drop this stat there. 78% of customers buy from the first responder. And this is something that's come up in conversations. I know, Tom, back when we've talked about sales process and the importance of having a process to begin with, and also being in a position, especially if you're a one-man shop or if you're an owner who's still knee-deep in the technical day-to-day stuff, being able to respond quickly when people do come to your site and fill out that contact us form, or they do reach out in other ways, it's super important. And this isn't just to MSPs. I mean, this applies across the board. More often than not, it's going to be the early bird that gets the worm there. There's also a stat here. Sales conversions rise nearly 400% higher when inbound leads are contacted within the first minute. I know that we talked with Alex Farling, for example, Tom, and he mentioned, man, there was definitely deals he lost out on because he was an owner. He got kind of pulled away, and by the time he got around to following up on a lead about a week later, they'd already signed with someone else.
Yeah, Jonathan, I think about first touch on this, and I've talked about it on these webinars before, how I had someone answering the phone from 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. by the second ring at the latest. And I was really big on that. And that got me a lot of business. But I look at it now, and I think maybe that's not as important because we know a lot of people out there who don't want to jump on phones. They would prefer to do something through texting app, something like that, through your website. And they want to interact that way. They prefer not the voice. So a tool like this is another tool to make that first touch with either it's a net new prospect or it's an existing client, whatever the case. That first touch and doing it quickly can mean you get the business, or you get more business, or they have more faith in you, or you're able to resolve things faster. There's so many pieces where it touches in your business.
Yeah, this is where the examples come into play because, again, it doesn't have to necessarily be like you jumping out on a phone within that first minute. It's just a touch, right? And a definition of what a touch is, and like a meaningful, actually satisfactory one, is really changing a lot with exactly what you're saying, Tom. I mean, if I'm getting an instant response to a question, even if it's from a bot on a website, on a webpage, like that's, hey, I'm making some progress there versus just the alternative of not having that option and getting silence or just being pushed to send out an email. To that point, I mean, here's another graph. This is kind of hard to see. I've included, I'll drop the link to this doc again in the chat. But this is just making that point,
Jonathan,
too.
one thing.
Go ahead, Tom.
One thing was, it's an average of 7 touches to land a new client.
Oh, yeah.
And you can easily count this as one of those touches. And it's such a quick touch. That's what interests me is you're engaging very quickly without you having to engage. And then, of course, as Alex Farling brought up, when does the handoff happen? How do you control that? And because you put that into the hands of the MSP and the hands into the prospect or the client. And that's an important piece of this that I'm sure Chris is going to touch on as well.
Yeah. And I mean, like how many times, how many times do you end up chasing down a lead and then only to finally get them on the call? And then you realize, like, within the first minute, this is not a qualified person. This is not who we want to be talking with, actually, right? You just wasted all that time. When like to me, that's a great use of a bot, of a chatbot, is to ask some qualifying questions right off the bat, or just like ask some basic questions that are going to help you respond in the right way and help you prioritize too. So this graph is just making that point of people are wanting different avenues of talking with people. It's not just the phone by any means. So let's get right into the objections now. I want to hear from people in the chat if they agree with this. So, I mean, seeing that chart where it's like, okay, yeah, users want to be where they're at. They want to be on Teams or Slack. They want to be able to text you. I mean, this is the classic thing. Is like rule number 1, right? Don't give out your own phone number. Don't have your text messaging with users. But at the same time, if you're a one-man shop, sometimes that could be a good thing too that you put out there. Anyway, I'm curious to hear how appealing or unappealing is the thought of like, oh man, more channels for my prospect or my prospects and users to be able to get in touch with me. And of course, a big part of that is also, well, if we do have all those channels that we're engaging in and we have all these interactions, how's it being collected? Where's our single source of truth, right? Chris, you want to jump in there? Because I mean, that's a big point of, I understand you presented IT Nation, and that was kind of a big part of your talk.
Actually, that was, and that was a great opportunity, great time, and that is, I think, one of the big reservations when you talk about having chat messaging support for MSPs. I mean, all that data was collected by HubSpot. You're saying there, and HubSpot has this kind of capability where if you're using HubSpot, you can drop a chatbot widget on your website, attach it to other things, and it will collect this sort of information for you because it is going into HubSpot. And I think that's one of the big reservations for MSPs is, we're using systems, various PSAs, various pieces of software that are, that you've put a lot of time, a lot of money into. These are the systems of record. You don't want things happening outside of those systems. And so any kind of messaging solution is going to really need to connect to those. And you need to get the data where it belongs. And that's true of both customer-facing chat, collecting leads, doing support, but it's also true of internal chat, which you mentioned Microsoft Teams, everybody using that today. There's a lot of data lost in that as well. So the chat's happening all over the place. It's happening inside the company, outside the company, and wherever it happens. For an MSP, you want to get it into the system where you can report on it, where you can add it to your knowledge base, where you can bill on it. And so these are, I think that's part of the reservation is the lack of connectivity. If you wanted to go build one of these things or use one of the off-the-shelf products, up until recently, you would find that the connectivity is not something, if it's there, that you could control at least. And so so that's one of the things that I've been trying to fix, and there are other companies working to make that sort of bridge happen and make this a possible avenue for MSPs to get the data into their systems.
Yeah, and we're going to go into going back to the point I made earlier about we're going to be showing examples, right? And so we're going to get into a little bit later examples of how MSPs are using chatbots specifically on their websites in order more of like the initial hey prospecting role, and also some support functions too. But can you get into some examples of maybe kind of what you were just talking about in terms of internal uses of it? Or other ways that MSPs are using some automation for the support side of the house?
Yeah, sure. So I think one of the key aspects of this is that we've tried to come at it from an omnichannel kind of view. So when you're talking about messaging, it's not just a little, pop up on the bottom right corner of the website like we've all seen. It's also about handling, potentially SMS. And you might have customers who, are texting you today, and you want to not have that happen in a haphazard fashion anymore. You want to get it controlled. It might be about customers that want to talk to you on Teams or Slack right now. That I hear that more and more in conversations with MSPs is, oh yeah, we have customer X and they want to talk to us on Teams. They want to open a ticket using Teams, and that is creating a data silo right there. It's creating a place where information is going in that you really need to have captured, but you're relying then on the manual operations of a tech to make sure that information actually gets into a ticket or collected into a note on the contact, however you want to collect it. And so you really need to get control of that process. And so that's what automation is really about with this, is trying to figure out the steps in this process that a robot could do. And if there are some, let it do it and make the humans' lives a little easier.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's. Oh, go ahead, Tom.
I just want to say I really like two things. I like how you're speaking about it as a messaging application and not just support. And because it's about those touches and about communication and the quickness of it. But also I like how you mentioned, the SMS part, and how you a lot of people out there end up with technicians that are receiving text messages directly from clients, calls directly from them. And you're giving them an alternate, and they do that because, especially with SMS, because it's quick. People respond so quickly to SMS. And I know we've got some stats on that. And if you move that over to a chat SMS, the client gets the same result, but you move it away from the technician, and we know what happens out there. It ends up not being a ticket. It ends up being handled or not handled by a technician, and it's not in your system. And we're providing a way here with this kind of system where it's integrated with the ticketing, where it's going to end up, and I know you're going to show an example of that use, and I think that's important, that we're trying to move things back into your control in your domain so that you can make sure they're handled and it's documented and resolved, and so you know about it.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think that the lack of control, the data silos and everything, that those key aspects are big concerns. And then for me, a big question is, again, just like, where do the handoff? What does this actually look like? What are the handoffs in terms of, okay, we can automate the entry points of this, and then we're going to eventually feed this into redirect it, kind of serve it in almost like a dispatcher role or something. But can you, Chris? I know you said you had some examples. Can you kind of maybe bring up some visuals and kind of walk people through some examples of kind of what this looks like?
Yeah, sure, I can do that. So let me just share my
Like
screen.
Evan pointing out that you're totally right, Tom.
It happens. Yeah.
So yeah, can you see my screen?
Yes, we can.
Great. So yeah, the idea of this is it's really all about automation, and I like what you said about it. It's a messaging application, but it's really about putting messaging as the user interface on top of some automation. So you want something that you can sort of build. It's a buzzword in a lot of these industries today with RPA. It's robotic process automation, which I'm old enough to remember when they just called that scripting. But but VCs love this term, right? And it's the more I've learned about it, the more I realize that there are some nuances to that are beyond just automating something with a script. It's about combining some level of orchestration, being able to say, okay, well, if this, then that, controlling the behavior a little bit, but also being event driven, not something where, oh, I'm going to sit down, I'm going to run this script to do a bunch of things, but reacting instead of taking action based on a schedule or something you need to do. So it's got to take inputs. So that's what we're talking about really, is something that can use messaging as one of its inputs, and then make decisions based on a collection of that data and other data. And so that's kind of the idea of this type of chat is not just a live chat widget, but it's a managed chat. It's a way to build some sort of process that sits between your systems of record, whatever they may be. It may be a knowledge base, it might be a PSA, it might just be a legacy system of some kind. Sit between that and the ways that your customers and your techs want to communicate with it. And so the last part of that, I think, is really the omni-channel part, which is not just saying to your customers, here's how you can talk to us, but trying to figure out for your business, for your process, what kinds of methods do your customers and your potential customers want to use to communicate with you. SMS, yeah, like Tom mentioned, it's the idea that SMS is ubiquitous. Everybody from 8 to 80 is comfortable texting, and you can do it from any device. And we're going to mention getting into some stats, but the average turnaround time on an email is 90 minutes, and the average turnaround time on a text is 90 seconds. And so that works both ways for you. It's not just about can your customers reach you quickly, but can you reach your customers quickly after you've closed that issue? Can you get a response from them? Because from my conversations with MSPs, that's a lot of the problem is, a customer creates a ticket and you're on top of it, you solve it right away, and then you can't get up with them to get them to accept the resolution, to get that ticket closed. And so having a messaging loop that is tighter, that can close that, is a key part of the automation. So
yeah, being able to get, I mean, I always take things back into marketing, right? Because that's who I am. But uh, just as it's important to reach people quickly when they're reaching out for that first help or for more information if they're a prospect, it's also extremely important once they've had a good experience. If you're collecting CSAT scores, or if you're reaching out trying to get more reviews and things like that, if you've had a good experience with someone, getting them really quickly uh, is also important. The more time that goes by, the less likely you are to get them to actually respond to something, right? And
right.
so that's a whole nother part of this too. Anything that can help you improve. I think that was a big takeaway for me, Chris, is when we were talking. Is this isn't just something for your customers, but this is something that you can use to get customers to respond quickly too. It's not just about customers using it to get you to jump through hoops and jump quicker too, right?
Yeah, it's not just an inconvenience, another method for you to get spammed by issues. It's really a way to get the process under control and to just tighten up everything and automate every step of the way that you can. Um, and so uh, so that's kind of my visuals, but um, this is kind of just a demo page that shows a chatbot widget at work. This is kind of
Chris, I
everybody's
got a quick
familiar with
question in
this.
there. It has to do with this. I saw some interesting icons on that last one where you have the teams, you have Slack, I saw Twitter. And I think it's really interesting to point out that a lot of us think of chatbots as like you go to Verizon wireless site or something like that, and you're using it on their screen, but you're showing that this is accessible in a lot of other ways and through other applications. And I think that's a really important thing to discern here.
Yeah, I think that the real difference between a system that just does some sort of web chat type solution and a system that can really do some sort of multi-channel or omni-channel uh, automation process is night and day. There's so many different flavors of messaging that people use, and everybody's got their own kind of. If you just say messaging, say chat, it's it's really about demographics. It's about industries. If you've got customers who are out in the field, they're going to be texting. If you've got you know uh, my kids, then they're entrepreneurial. They're going to be starting businesses someday, and they're probably going to be picking their service provider off of their social media profile instead of their Better Business Bureau rating. And so being able to support some of these social media channels for messaging is going to be critical at some point in the future.
I'm just responding to Tim here, he's voicing the thing that we thought, right? Like he's like, oh man, I totally get it. This absolutely makes sense. I just need to see it actually working. I need to see some good examples here. So I guess, Chris, is there anything else that we can show? Also, I'm going to ask Tim, like, if you're up for it, and no pressure. A little bit of pressure, but no pressure. If you want to come on and and ask some questions directly, feel free to, or you can just stay and use the chat. Up to you.
Yeah, no, that's great. So yeah, this is as far as quick concepts go. This is one avenue for chat. So it's embedded chat box type solution where you can enter choices. You could type responses. The idea being this would help to capture leads or either let you do support for your existing customers. It's the kind of thing where you could embed it on your homepage, or you could embed it inside of your portal. It could be behind something that is only accessible to existing customers, or it could be something that's there to capture leads. But the idea is that for an MSP, I believe in my experience is that it has to be something that's customizable, because that's where the automation comes in. Like, no two people that I have talked to in this whole process want to do it the same way. Everybody has their own take on it. They want to be able to control it. They want to be able to do specific things. Some people want to create tickets. Some people don't want to create tickets. Some people want to go straight to live chat. It's varied. And so So one of the keys for what we're trying to do is to be able to configure that sort of thing. So you basically have a set of playbooks that you can create as a starting point, and then come in, and the conversation that you're seeing here is being defined by this workflow that you can just lay out. So it's just automation. You can say when they come in, say this. If they answer this, do this. And so if you want additional choices to be available to them, if you're providing a different kind of service, if you want to ask a qualifying question, like you mentioned, Jonathan, to say, yeah, are you in this general geographical area that is what we're interested in, prioritizing customers for. That's the kind of thing that you could shape through here. And so as far as the handoff, which I think is a really important thing to talk about, that is something that we do via Teams and Slack. So rather than introduce another tool to the whole process, the idea is that you're already, as an MSP, probably using either Teams or Slack for your internal communication. Not everybody is, but most of the people we're talking to today, and even most of their customers are using it in some way. So the idea is that when that handoff happens, since we are able to handle all these different channels, the way we handle it is connect two conversations. So we take the conversation that's happening on the website or from SMS or however it's coming in, connect that to a conversation inside of Teams. And then the technician can respond on a thread inside of Teams, inside a particular channel, and you can decide what kind of channel you want to create it in based on the context. So, sales leads get routed to a sales channel. High priority customer might get its own channel, that sort of thing. So then it's inside of Teams that you can do things like handle responses like this. So it's got this Teams integration piece. I think that's part of taking advantage of the omni-channel part is using whatever channel you want to use to communicate back rather than forcing you into something new, some new app or website.
That's great. Great point, Chris. And super helpful, at least for me, just to see some kind of visuals here and workflows here. I've got some other websites that I could dig into and show. I look at MSP websites all the time. We have Matt Fox here in the chat. At least he was earlier, and he and I are definitely super interested in MSP marketing websites in particular, and we've got some stuff in the works. But in doing that, I've gotten some examples. And before I get into those, I do want to be a little bit of a troll here. And I want to pull up the example of a company that I think a lot of people know here in the channel. Maybe some people don't. This is especially trolling Matt, actually, if he's still around. Oh, he is. And he's giving me the ugh already. So Electric.ai. They've been around for a while, right? They're based out in New York. They build themselves as not an MSP. They build themselves more as kind of like a software company. And maybe as a result of that, they've made some headlines. They've gotten funding and everything. I should have Matt come on here and just go on a big rant about them. At any rate, they do something pretty interesting here. I mean, you can see from their value props here, they lean very heavily on being the modern solution, and by identifying it by what they're basically what they're saying that means is like, we can give you lightning fast technical support. It's all the stuff we're talking about, right? Like, look, they've got these icons. They'll respond to you where you are. You don't have to leave Teams or Slack. You can get in touch with them automatically. And this is how they're doing it. They're doing, I guess the point, I'm not bringing this up to like say, oh, MSPs could be scared of this or something like that. I'm more bringing it up to say, everybody can do this, guys. Like, this isn't this. The great thing about it is with Chris and his tool, and there's others as well. There's other way to build out this stuff. Everyone can do this type of thing. I just think it's interesting to bring these guys up in terms of how much they lean on this in terms of their messaging. They make it all about being incredibly responsive, very user-centric. We'll meet you where we are, and we'll get back to you really, really quickly. And we're gonna do stuff very fast. It's kind of catered to the millennial mindset, right? Like, you don't want to deal with a person. Perfect. Like, we'll make sure that we solve this for you very quickly and without friction. So I wanted to bring those guys up just kind of as a thing. Like, they're a big company, they're growing, they have this messaging. Maybe there's something to learn from here, and some opportunities to take advantage of.
No, I think that's a good point, but I think you're right that it's a misconception that only electric or some of the other big players can have access. The ability to access all this technology has never been easier for an MSP, for any small business. It's all there. We just have to know how to access it correctly.
So I want to now. I'll show some sites. So I went to the MSP 501 list, and I went to the channel features. They have it like in a slide format, which is the worst thing in the world. But anyway, I was cycling through the top 25, and quite a few of them have chatbots, chat options here on their home pages. And I think it's interesting to kind of go through to see like the most basic, like cookie cutter things. And to your point, Chris, like everyone handles it a little bit differently. But I thought I'd start with kind of the most basic and move on from there, right? So IT solutions here, as you can see, they have their chat option and questions chat with sales. It's super basic, right? They do have an actual person, their name attached to it. Hello, would you like to talk about our services? Now, the actual person thing is something I'm kind of interested in and wanted to ask you about, Chris. To me, this is it. I could see arguments for both, right? Like, one, yeah, it's a real person, and if it actually is, or if, I guess obviously this is not going to be Kelly Andres like actually responding to me the second after I type something, right? It's the automation part of it. But if eventually I do get funneled into talking with him or her, cool. But if this is a completely fake thing, and I like, there is this risk of feeling kind of like duped about it. Again, kind of going back to the big news that happened a couple of weeks ago with a big company getting called out for sending out emails from a person that wasn't actually even a real person. This came to light, and everyone was not happy about that. So I guess like there seems to be kind of a balance there, and I'm just kind of curious if you have any recommendations. Do you recommend that people say it's an actual person, or do you say don't go down that path?
Yeah,
I think it just kind of vary.
Yeah, and I think it's a bad idea to pretend. I mean, I think that it's unnecessary, really. I mean, people are comfortable with the idea of interacting with something like this, at least at the beginning, and knowing it's automated. So your choice of name, your choice of logo, your tone that you're striking from it is it's not hard to do this in a way that's both inviting and still building trust and not trying to be a person. At the same time, like, so one of the things we do is, by default, it's just kind of a generic logo that's ours, but you can replace it with your own image. But as far as the live chat goes, when things cross that line, when that handoff happens, then both sides get notified that, oh, here, Chris is joining the chat now, or when that handoff ends, because it's possible to hand it back off to the bot once you've taken care of the issue. That notification happens again, so that there's no confusion about what's really happening. People are comfortable talking to. So.
Yeah, I 100% agree with you, and I do want to hear this story from Ray, so I'm going to have to invite him on. But yeah, I mean, so for another example, here we got, in terms of injecting some tone and personality, we have Expedient here, taking a little bit of an option where they're actually saying, okay, there's the chat now. They said, hey, I'm not a robot, so they're actually saying there is a real person behind this and doing the little Giphy wave thing to give a little personality to it. Then we got Caltech here. This was another one that I thought was just kind of like a very good example of a super basic thing, right? they have like they've injected their tagline there, but there is a lot more opportunity for them to show a little bit more personality. I'm going to show you a cool example in a second. And then the other thing is like the kind of the hurdles. Like, I don't know about you guys, but if I go to one of these and I immediately just get like hit with a form, essentially like, what's your name? What's your email address? Like, if I get hit with that immediately, I'm kind of turned off from it because I'm like, well, what's the point? I could have just filled out a form. So I guess one thing to keep in mind is like, when you're trying to experimenting with using these things, it's not just about funneling into something you could have already done. It's like, what are the new things that you can accomplish with this? Here's a good example. So we got Empist, right? Super small touch here. This is a great site. That's a good example for people to check out. I like how it's put together. But they have clearly a bot. It looks a lot like the Ninja one. They probably use Drift. But they say, hey there, ready to transform your business? We can help. They got an emoji in there. It's just a simple way to show a little bit of personality, which is ironic because it's coming from like the obvious bot. But goes to that point. And then when you go into it, they give you the options that let you go down the path, right? So you can go just browsing, schedule an intro call. I want to learn more. And so they feed you down the trees there, and they'll link me down into like, okay, what do you want to learn about? This is an alternative navigation, obviously, and then they'll link me to some things, and then that kind of ends there. A couple other examples, really quickly, not MSP examples, because you don't need to just limit yourself to MSPs when you're looking at cool market ways to do this, use this tech. CrowdStrike, company we're all probably familiar with. Hey there, want to see something cool? It got my attention, right? You can say like, I'm not going to play your cute little game, or if you're feeling playful, you can get right into it, and let's see what they do. I mean, okay, they give me like, they just try to get me to register for something. That's kind of lame, but I mean, it's just showing you like, there's different ways you can play around with engagement here. And as we go down the scale from like super basic to more like personality, maybe whimsical, Gong, if you don't know, is like software for sales teams. And look at this. They've got, they don't just have a bot. They didn't pretend like they're a person. They've got their mascot here. This is Bruno bot. He just says woof. My only option is to ask if he's been a good boy. And he tells me that I am. And then he's like, what can I fetch for you? Like this is a way, it's a small thing. I'm not saying this is right for everybody and everybody needs to come up with a cutesy gimmick or whatever. But I think it is important to see the different things people are doing to make these things more engaging, while they're also serving all the real purposes that we've been talking about on the call. So those are just some examples I wanted to share. The other one that jumped to mind was Avik used to have their polar bear as their chatbot, and I don't think they're using their chatbot anymore, so I'll have to ask them why. But anyway, those are some examples. If Ray's still around, I want to invite you on, Ray. And while we're doing that, I'll pull up some bad examples too. But Chris or Tom, any other comments? Just like looking at those, or I've had my eyes off the chat. Anything that came up in the chat that you want to address?
Well, real quick, I mean, the thing on a couple of these I saw, and Alex Farling's point before this in the Slack group, was that you need to make it so you give people an option to talk to an operator. And so when I see that, first of all, and some of the comments we're seeing from Matthew and Ray, and intelligent questions and answers where it's engaging to some point. So I think that takes, and Chris can speak to that, it takes some work to fill that out, to make sure you're providing reliable information and not just making someone feel like they're being jerked along, that you're actually going to engage with them, give them valuable information, but at the time that they want to, they can get to a human. And I think that's critical.
Yep. Yeah. Conversational design is becoming a profession, with the growing tools that are out there. So people, a lot of those good examples that you had, we're in Drift, which is a good tool and lets you do that sort of design. Drift, Intercom, some of these other tools that really let you get in there and craft something. And that's what we've tried to build, but with an MSP focus, so that they can participate in this this new channel.
I do want to give thank you for that, guys, and I do want to give up some examples of what not to do. And we kind of already touched on a little bit. I didn't want to call out name and shame with this particular person, but this kind of goes to my earlier point of like, oh man, don't bait and switch me. Like the whole point of chat is to be like, okay, I got a quick question. Maybe this is a way to get a quick response, right? And here is like someone who's used this thing from Pure Chat, and I've seen multiple MSP sites using this, by the way. And I think Pure Chat gives you other options, but basically they just have it like it looks like it's a chat. Have questions? Chat with me. Okay, cool. But then it's just a form to email them.
Yeah, that's disappointing to
Yeah.
have something call itself Pure Chat and then just be an email for.
Right. And just like, okay, well, I've been anticipating an instant response, and now I know I'm not going to get a response for at least 24 hours.
Yeah. That's, I find it very disappointing when you just when a chat turns into a contact form.
This is another thing too, and I didn't mind including the actual screenshot because this company has since, this is like from a couple of years ago, and they've since given their site a makeover, and it's much better. But these guys, like, you can't really see it because I didn't have a GIF, but like they hit like this is a pop-up here that's behind the chat. The chat was like even just it wasn't even like an option to expand it. It popped up at me. And so like I got hit with a form. I'm just trying to navigate their site to see what it is. And like they hit me with the form, and then they hit me with the chat option like right in front of it. And I can't even see what I'm trying to read anymore. And then it's like Sean, you know, like I don't know, Sean, like I'm sure she's wonderful if she's a real person, but is she a real person? Like it set me down another path. And that kind of goes back to the whole, like, be careful going down that road if you're going to end up coming across as being deceptive. To your point, Chris, I think at this point, everyone knows what the chats are all about. It's a bot. Like I think you're better suited to having fun with it or not just trying to pretend like it's a real person. I don't know. Just my perspective. Ray, how's it going?
Hey, Ray.
Oh, your audio. I think you may have to turn a couple knobs to switch, do something.
Might be right on your screen. There's a muted button.
Well, while you're trying to do that, there we go.
Yeah, I think Ray, you'll probably see it on your actual picture. Mine was muted when I started out.
We need the Crowdcast chat to engage with Ray while we can continue on. Oh, Matt's ready and ready to go. Yeah, let's bring Matt on too. Actually,
yeah.
Sorry, Ray. Yeah, okay. I'm gonna invite Ray on too and get Matt involved as well. Yeah, I mean, I think that, you know, the website thing, I think they're good examples because it's very clear. It's easy to understand, right? But I was really interested with Chris having you on and your point of, you know, this isn't just about that's just one of the use cases here, that there's many other things that you could be doing. All right.
No.
Ray, can we hear you?
Still muted.
Nothing. Oh man.
Coming to save the day. Saw the opportunity.
Jumped in there.
Oh, I know. Ray was getting a little spicy with me in the chat there, so I thought a little face-to-face time would be a good thing.
So Matt, thank you. This is we've already had our streaming time together today, and now we get to go round two. This is lovely. I love it.
Also, hey Chris, man, it's been a little while. How you doing?
Hey Matt, how you doing?
So yeah, Matt is creative director at Valiant Technology, an MSP based in New York. Like I said, I was kind of trolling him a bit with the electric AI drop there, but Matt, I mean, I'm glad you're on here because, like I mentioned at the very top, we've been wanting to do a live chat around chatbots for a while, and you know, this is an area that you're very interested in as a marketing person, and then obviously also as a technologist and as a MSP.
Absolutely, and it's actually fun to see them kind of becoming more and more prevalent because, I mean, they're nothing new. We used to write chatbots for AOL when we were kids in like 95, 96. It's not really that different. There's no subclassing involved. It's more request response, but it's really the same thing as it was 25 years ago. Chris is nodding his head. I think he knows exactly the stuff I'm talking about.
I have been building these things for a long time. Yeah. And it's in some ways it all stays the same. It's just new tools to talk to, and that's really, a big part of this is there are so many different chat solutions already out there that I think one of the big roadblocks for MSPs is just you need something that talks to what you work with, whatever that PSA is, whatever that.
It needs to be able to tie in with the systems that you work with, and I think it also needs to some extent be an extension of your company's personality.
Yes.
If the bot doesn't in any way match the people that you're eventually going to speak to, it feels very bait and switchy. Personally, being on a call for being in a chat for support and then talking to a person, having two totally different experiences, that inconsistency can be a real detriment to what you're trying to do. And I think that was the one thing that I was thinking about as you guys were talking, being able to contextualize a bit and bring your company's personality in, which some of the examples I think did a pretty good job of, as well as the opposite of a pretty good job in a couple of those. But I think that right there is one of the hurdles to get over. And I think it's probably one of the easier ones because it's not always technical in nature, but maybe that makes it more difficult for people. I really don't know.
Well, yeah, I mean, you mentioned the context of it. There's also just the, as I think it was, oh man, I'm going to blank on your name, my friend, David. Yes, it was David in the chat earlier said, when he has to go through this experience of having to basically repeat the same thing, once he does get to a real person, having to just repeat it over and over again. And Chris, this goes back to this problem that you're trying to solve too, right? Of the information not funneling through.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not just the context. It's like, oh man, I'm going to have to go through this whole dance with a bot, and then I'm going to talk to a person. I just have to repeat everything I just typed in.
Yeah, you definitely want to take advantage of the fact that you should be collecting the information. That information should be made available easily to the person when it does do that handoff. It should be a whole set of fields that have already been collected, or a transcript of the conversation. Getting that transcript, collecting that data, that's one of the key pieces of all this. And in fact, that's one of the things that we do that I don't think anybody else does right now, is for internal chat. So if your techs are having a conversation in Teams, in Slack, about a particular issue, we have a shortcut command that you can run at the end of the conversation. You think, oh, well, this is all done. We've collected everything. And it'll grab the entire threaded conversation, document, attachments and all, and put it in a ticket so that it gets where it's supposed to go, rather than sitting in Teams and then 6 months from now, you're like, I think we solved this already, didn't we? And you have to go hunting in two places to try to find out where. Collecting the information is critical.
Absolutely. And we have, I just want to call out Stephen. Thanks for being on, Stephen. He's got a great comment that I'm sure, Tom just gave affirmation. Tom, you talk about this all the time too, right? You can buy a tool, but if you don't put in the work to actually implement it, you're going to get what you put into it, right? And so, he does bring up the point that it's easy to see this is kind of like a shiny thing that you don't really think through and you don't really utilize too much, and then you don't get anything out of it.
Yeah, Jonathan, I was thinking about that too, and Stephen brought it up, and David also, that you get something like this, you're going to put it in place, and then there's probably going to be some complaints at first because you're not going to have it right the way people like it or your clients like it. There's going to be a lot of tweaking and getting feedback. You probably want to test out with some clients and then really fine tune it and find out. And I'm sure, Chris, you probably provide some direction in this area as well as what the best practices are.
Absolutely. This is not, in my opinion and in my experience, an off-the-shelf solution. You don't just turn this on and everything's fine. Everybody we've brought on board so far, it's been a combined process. We're working with them to say, okay, well, what do you want this to do? How can we help you customize this to fit yours and make sure we get it right? Because I mean, it's face that you're putting out there. It's your voice. If you don't get that right, then like Matt said, I mean, that's you lose trust. It breaks trust when there's that disconnect of tone, of voice, of picture, or of profile in some cases. You need to build the trust both ways. It runs both ways. You want to build trust with your customers by making this work well, and we want to build trust in the concept, the technology for MSPs, because to be honest, chatbots have overpromised and underdelivered for a number of years now. So.
Yeah, what if part of it comes back to not really having the full. We want to be more responsive, and we want our customers to be more responsive for us. And this is a tool for us to get there. I wonder if it's like an issue of maybe not having the complete goal firmed up in mind. It's more just like, hey, here's something we can try out. But,
I think that is one thing that I always try to mention too, because some people look at it as a solution like, oh, we're going to get some sales from this. We're going to put this on our website and we're going to get sales. Chat needs traffic. Like, it doesn't matter if you stick a chatbot on your website and nobody's coming there. And chat itself cannot generate traffic. You still have to do the work. You have to do some marketing. You have to do some sales. You have to get your message out there and get people to your site or to your social media channel. And then this is an assist to help you convert that lead.
Absolutely. And you're getting a question here from Evan, who's warning you his need is his case is complex, but he's wanting to get in touch with you. And I'm dropping a link to the site. ChatStyle.ai is the site, guys. And is there another way that folks can get in touch with you?
I mean, you can send it to Chris at Chatstyle.ai, and everybody who's on this can just have at me. I'd love to talk to everybody who was on here.
That's great. Well, thank you so much for that and offering up the time. I'll drop your email address in the doc too, if you don't mind.
Not at all.
Is it going to be you responding, or is it going to be automated?
It's going to be me. We are still that small that it's going to be me. So, but everybody starts somewhere. So.
Everyone starts somewhere. You can dream. Well, that's great. Well, thank you so much, Chris. And again, guys, I'll one more time drop the link to this doc here, because this is something that you guys have with you. We've got links to a bunch of the resources we talked about, not just ChatStyle, but some of all those examples that we showed too. And we've also got a little bit of highlights about what's coming up. And so I'll just plug this really quickly. Let's go back through these bad examples, the good examples. Here we go. This is the one. So guys, it's the holiday season, the most magical holiday of all, Festivus. We want to celebrate it with you. And we want to do that 2 Thursdays from now. So we're going to it's not going to be the standard live chat. It's going to be a little bit of a different event. If anyone joined our IT Horror Fest that we had back around Halloween time, this is going to be sort of like it. So we want you to come, be merry with us, be not so merry.
Hey Jonathan.
Yes.
Really quickly, I know I'm not a part of Ninja, but I'd like to extend an invitation to Wolverine for this live stream. Get Wolvie down here.
Yeah, maybe Santa Wolverine. I don't know.
Oh, that's a good one.
Are we gonna do something? Are we gonna eat something hot? How about the chip challenge? Can we do that?
Man, I'm waiting for someone to convince us to eat something disgusting or hot or something.
This candy cane is 80 billion Scoville units. Let's do it.
Yeah, let's do that. Let's find them.
Thanks, Daniel. Daniel said the Horror Fest was fun. It was fun, but yeah, as Tom mentioned, we ate the world's spiciest lollipop, which is called the toe of Satan, and it completely destroyed me. And I don't know if I'm ready for it again, guys. But if that's on enough people's wish list, then maybe we'll make it happen.
Let's find it. Let's find it.
But what we do want to do is we certainly want to have everyone come to this event. We're going to have another awesome group of guests on too. But we want to have you guys come, air a grievance, brag about a feed of your IT strength. So a win. We want to we don't want it to be just negative, I guess. We want to have people celebrate a win, right? So bring something you want to have air grievance about. Bring a win that you want to celebrate. And then we're going to give away cool prizes. And so that's it's going to be an awesome time. It's 2 Thursdays from now, December 16th. It's going to be 11 a.m. Eastern, a little bit of an early start for East Coasters. And the idea there too is it's going to be a little bit longer because IT Horror Fest we kept it an hour. People were sharing stories; they didn't want to stop, and so we ended up having like a bonus session. This one we're fully prepared to go a little bit longer because we want you guys to be able to let the people that have grieved you really know about it. And also share your cool wins because I'm sure everyone on this call this year has had an awesome win that other people would like to hear about and learn from. So definitely show up for that. That'll be a fun one. And with that, Chris, I want to say thank you so much again for taking time and coming on. Really great to have you here. And as you can see, some people want to talk with you, so we'll make sure that you guys get connected.
That's fantastic, and I really enjoyed the time here, and it was great to talk with you guys. I'm sorry we couldn't get Ray's voice kicked in. That was one of my highlights of Connect, was hanging out with him for an evening. So
yeah, and Ray, just for those who don't know Ray, I mean, a lot of people do. He's everywhere in the channel. He's CEO of OIT VoIP, and he's going to be around on IT Festivus along with you heard us mention Alex. And Marnie from Lifecycle Insights are going to be with us too, and along with some others. And maybe Mr. Fox, maybe the talented Mr. Fox will be there.
Maybe that's when Ray and I'll do our rant. It'll be a co-rant.
There we go.
I like it.
Co-managed ranting. That sounds good to me.
Yeah, and maybe Santa Wolverine. What do you think, Tom?
It could happen.
All right, guys. Matt, thank you. Tom, thank you very much.
You.
And thanks to everybody who came on the chat. This is a lot of fun. We'll be following up with an email where you'll get the recording and the link to the resources doc, and another invite to IT Festivus. So hopefully we'll see you then. Excellent. Take care, everybody.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Bye, Cliff. Bye, everybody. Bye, Daniel.